Hi everyone, welcome to my show, From Stuck to Unstoppable, how divorce can be the catalyst for the most extraordinary chapter in your life. Learn how 21 mindset experts can help you shift, thrive, and create the life of your dreams. Now, this is not limited only to women who are experiencing divorce or separation. This is for any woman who is finding themselves in a transition in their life, whether it be an empty nesting or career shift or navigating parts of their career that they hadn't anticipated, relationships. Gosh, there's a myriad of things that one could be in transition with. It could simply be that you've woken up one morning and realized that this is not exactly the life that you had in mind. That's very real, and I feel like that's happening a lot these days. So this show and summit is for you. I have curated a handful of wonderful mindset specialists, casting a wide net of expertise from health, wealth, marriage, divorce, relationships, financial, grief, all sorts of things that will help you navigate your way into living the best version of yourself in your life. So stay tuned as we trickle out 21 experts over the next 21 days to help inspire and empower and help you realize that everything you need is exactly inside of you where it's always been. So join me on this little adventure, and I look forward to seeing you. Thanks so much. Welcome back to my show, From Stuck to Unstoppable. I'm your host, Christina Price, and today I have Jill Barnett Kaufman joining me, and she is a therapist and divorce coach and a co-parenting expert. So I'm going to turn the floor over to her and let her introduce herself and give us a little backstory of how you found yourself as a co-parenting expert and a divorce coach, and give us a little insight as to how your approach is different or how you really land with people.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So way back when my kids were little, I was teaching parenting classes, and I really loved it because one of my kids was spirited. And so but they always asked me if I could keep seeing them. And I'm like, I'm not a therapist, so I couldn't see them after the class, but I ended up going back and getting my master's in counseling. And so I became a therapist, and I was doing couples therapy and family and children and all different things. And then I went through my own really horrible divorce in 2012, and I did everything wrong. I made all the mistakes, hurt my children, did a lot of things that I regret. And after that, a couple years after I had my own private practice, I decided to really focus on divorce because I didn't want other people to go through what I went through. And so I started being a divorce coach. I was actually trained to be a mediator, and I've worked with co-parenting. I've worked with couples on co-parenting counseling for years and years. And I actually do reunification counseling, which is really tough. And it's just something that I love to do because I can relate to every one of my clients who comes in who is completely overwhelmed and just lost, because that's how I was, and helping them have clarity on what steps to take as they go through the divorce process. That is what my passion is. I have a book, I have an online course, I have a group coaching program, and I work with people also individually. And the group I really developed because I wanted to connect with other people who are going through divorce. Most of my friends were not divorced, and I felt very isolated and alone. So to have that group aspect while you're getting the help from a divorce coach, I think is just a wonderful way to go through this process.
Okay, so this is your transformational thriving through divorce group coaching program, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I neglected to mention that your book is I'm Getting Divorced Now What, which obviously is such a great lead into the group, because it is a super isolating experience for a lot of people. And there's a difference between getting together with your friends and venting and getting into a container with women who are in a very similar experience, led by a coach who has walked a very similar experience, to then it turns into something very different.
Oh, it's absolutely like for an example, last week we had 5 women, and I do have allow men in the group too, but not that many want to come into the group usually. But if they're willing, they're invited.
Yeah.
But they were like, how are we all married to the same man? Like it
Mm,
was all like similar
right.
with, and it doesn't mean that everybody's a narcissist or has a mental illness, but there are traits that you can recognize that are similar that are really difficult as you go through divorce. And I think those are the people who need the most help. So that's who I end up working with.
Yeah, yeah. And there is something, there's pros and cons to both, and there's wonderful advantages to doing one-on-one versus group and group versus one-on-one. In my experience, I love both, but in my experience, yeah, there's something really special about group coaching because sometimes you don't even know how to say what you're feeling, or you don't even know what you're feeling until somebody else names it. And then you have this aha breakthrough of, oh my gosh, that's what I'm feeling. And that doesn't always happen in a one-on-one. So
Right.
it's a lovely space to be when you're in a really challenging spot.
And the other piece of it that's really nice is that there are people at different stages. And like I'll have someone who's already have moved out and is almost signing their agreement. And then the people who are at the beginning are like, oh my God, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This isn't going to last forever. Because it feels like it's going to last forever
Right,
when you're in
right.
it.
Yeah, it's all encompassing. There's no part of your day or life that isn't touched by it. So it does feel like, oh my gosh, we know nothing lasts forever, but I feel like a lot of people who are in the middle of that, it's like this is how it's always going to be.
Yep.
You
And
can't
that's
have it.
really a scary place to be. And knowing, plus I'm remarried and I always have that perspective that you can have a life. And it doesn't mean you have to find a partner if some people don't want to, and that's fine. But like you can have a life, whatever that means,
Mhm.
post-divorce. You get to create that. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, that definitely is a stage oriented thought. Not really something that when you're really in the thick of it is even easy to consider. But I would imagine that it's encouraging to see people at the other end of the spectrum and the stage of being like, oh no, like when you're ready, it'll happen. And
Yeah, you have to be ready and you
yeah.
have to learn from your marriage. You really have to heal and you have to take stock. And that's what we try to do also when you're going
Mhm.
through this. You don't have to wait till you're divorced to heal. You can heal while you're going
Yeah.
through it and really figure out what it is that you've learned that you
Mhm.
want to change about yourself.
So talk to me a little bit about that, like in your coaching practice, how do you help women or men, and men for that matter, really shift their mindset about how they're viewing their current situation? What it's like, how is that part of your program?
My book goes through the emotional parts of this, and you really have to grieve. A lot of people
100%.
are stuck because they're not feeling the grief. They're angry or they feel that it's unfair or they're just stuck in some emotions that are not going to get them
Or being a
to
victim
a
or
better
being
place.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the grief includes denial, bargaining, sadness, anger, and eventually acceptance. And so they could be stuck in the anger, but they need to feel the sadness. So really there's so much under anger and getting to what is really going on, all the emotions that are
Mhm.
going on is part of what we work on
Yeah.
because until you do that, you're not going to get anywhere. And then I love this quote from Buddha, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You
Oh,
know,
right.
like you can be angry all your life, but you're not hurting anybody else but yourself. And
Yourself. Yeah.
yeah. So you really have to find a way to either forgive yourself if that's who you're angry with, or
Mhm.
your soon to be ex or your
Mhm.
ex. And even if it's not 100% forgiveness, it's
Mhm.
letting go of the anger so that you can move forward.
And I do feel like grief is actually probably the biggest emotion that's buried underneath all of those. The fear, the anger, the bargaining, the denial. Like it's just the grief of, wow, this is just not what I thought it was going to be. My life is just not, and I having to let go of that vision or idea or fairy tale or however you want to say it is hard, can be hard.
It's ridiculously hard because it's your
Yeah.
future. It's your
Yeah.
future that you
You've
thought
got,
you were going to have. And
yeah.
you're not going to have that future, but you can have a really,
Yeah.
really amazing future.
Yeah.
And so when you realize that you can, that makes all the difference. And that's what we really focus on. What do you want in your life? I ask people, what makes you happy? And they can't give me an answer.
No, it takes a while to rework that muscle.
Yeah.
That's it's such an interesting phenomenon that you get to a certain point in your life and it's like you forget how to dream, you forget to how to imagine how things could be different and you just get so fixed on whatever is right now that you have to like really practice that. And sometimes that in a group actually can be inspiring. Oh my gosh, she said that. Maybe that's what I want. Or wow, I'm really not dreaming big enough. It is a muscle that needs to be reawakened.
Absolutely. And it's exciting once you
Yeah.
really realize that you can do anything now. You don't have to have an agreement with a partner, or maybe you just were too focused on your children and you didn't have anything else. You can, and I always tell people that in the beginning, it's so hard when you don't see your children, but then after you get used to it, you get excited for that time to yourself and you can do things that make you happy and you can see friends or you can do
Mhm.
whatever you want. So, yeah.
Pour into yourself, find yourself, figure out there there's a lot of living to do, even both with and without your kids. Like at some point, your kids in it, the way that I imagine that all parents are designing their lives, is that their kids are going to eventually
Hopefully.
move out, right? Move
Yes, you
out.
hope so.
And so there is always ultimately going to be a life after that. Often when this transition sometimes hits, it is earlier than most people sometimes are prepared for. But it's the same kind of opportunity that's presented is okay, now how do you want to see your life and how do you want to design it? So it is it can be, I think, a wonderful opportunity to really get to know yourself again. It is just one of those things that you have to process. I think it helps to have encouragement. If you just process it on your own time, sometimes it doesn't get processed. So
Exactly.
you do need somebody, I think it's helpful to have coaching you through it, being like, okay, now here's the mirror, take another look. Let's see
Yeah.
what we've got here.
Yeah. Like my dog is, you could get a dog. That's like an
Get a dog. Yeah,
unconditional love.
I know all the time. You mentioned really briefly this reunification counseling. What is that?
Oh, it's when a parent has been not in touch, doesn't have a relationship with a child.
Okay.
And sometimes it's from alienation from one of the parents. Sometimes it's because of the parent who's doesn't have the relationship, but it's really difficult work because to get to that point, it takes a lot of not difficult things that the everybody in the family's going through.
So that's part of your
My counseling practice, so I
counseling.
still have some counseling clients
Yeah.
and I work with that with them. And so you don't want to get to that. I always tell
I was
people,
going to say that's probably part of your divorce coaching to try and prevent that.
yeah, because tell people all the time, if even if someone wasn't a good spouse, they can really be a good parent.
Mhm.
And
Totally different
children,
relationship. Yeah.
yeah, children do better with two parents if possible, if there's no abuse or addiction or anything like that. It's better for kids to have a relationship with both parents. So anything you can do to support the relationship with the other parent is really important.
Yeah. And there is the tricky part, right? I can imagine, and at least in my experience with a lot of my friends who go through or are in the middle of going through a very challenging separation, of really how to create that co-parenting plan that best serves the kids, even when there is just this heavy discord between the two people. That feels like the hardest part to navigate.
Yeah, whatever you feel about your children's other parent, you have to have a good working relationship. And even if they're not contributing to that, you can do your part to contribute to that, like not react when they provoke you, be respectful even if they're not. Communicate and do the things that you would want the other person to do for
Mhm.
you. Exactly. So you have to be, and it's really hard because you
Mhm.
have to be the bigger person. And if your soon to be ex or ex is
Mhm.
not behaving in the best way, no matter what they do, you have to be the bigger person. And that's really hard. It's not fair, but you're
Mhm.
doing it for your children. You're not doing it for anyone else. The best thing you can do for your children is not to have a high conflict relationship with their other parent.
And I think coaching is the best way to go about that, because the saying and doing and the being and doing are two very different things. And to the point you made earlier about grieving and about really healing the relationship while you're in the middle of it is so important, because there's so many triggers.
Oh my
Mm.
gosh, there's so many triggers,
Mhm.
especially when you're going through divorce because you're worried about what is going to happen with your financial situation.
Right.
You're
It's so
worried about
stressful.
this the schedule. I remember I was in the same house with my ex for 9 months while we were going through this. It was horrible because we did not want to interact with each other,
Yeah.
but you have to. And I remember I was sitting having dinner with the kids, and he walks in and what do? You come sit and have dinner with us. Like,
Mm.
it's just so awkward and
It's
uncomfortable. And so it's just not, it's a temporary situation, but it's like the
so
worst.
challenging.
Yeah, the worst situation you can imagine to be like adversaries in a way, which hopefully you aren't, but a lot of people are
Yeah.
adversaries, and then you have to be together with your children in the same house.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's so hard. It's so hard. And it's just really challenging. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no,
very challenging.
yeah, there's no way around it. And at the end of the day, the part of why it is so, usually why it is so incredibly challenging is when you have kids, right? It's a lot easier to walk away from things and start your life over if you don't have kids. All the people that I've experienced that are going through a breakup, the challenge 100% lies in the kids, or 90%. And of course, there's a percentage that is with the finance and all that. But if you really are just by yourself, you're like, okay, I can reinvent myself. I can do it. I can figure out all the things. It's
Plus,
just another
plus
layer.
you don't have to see that person anymore.
Like
Yes.
ever if you wanted.
Yeah. And if you have kids, you are tied to that person forever.
Right.
And you have to find a way to be okay with that, no
Yeah.
matter what's happened.
Yeah.
And
So it's worth doing the work.
yes.
It's worth doing it sooner than later. You're not the first person that I've heard. It's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know. And hopefully you only go through this once. So by the time you've figured it all out, it's already over and done with. You've made all the mistakes and you're like, okay, great. I learned a lot, but so I love that there's a lot of women out there like you who are turning all that knowledge and providing it for other women to hopefully skirt some of the major pitfalls of this process,
Yeah.
because it is ends up being so complicated, and it always does feel like very urgent.
Yeah. And one of the biggest mistakes that I made that
Mhm.
people make is hiring an attorney,
That's an
and
attorney.
that's who you follow all of their advice and you let
Mhm.
them control your divorce. And it's attorneys are really good at the law. They know the
Yeah.
law, but
Yes.
they don't know all the emotional stuff.
Yeah.
I just spoke to a group of lawyers and judges a couple weeks ago, and they were like, my clients come and vent to me, but I can tell them that it's a very expensive way to
Right.
vent, and I don't know what
Expensive
to say to them.
therapy.
So you really shouldn't vent to your attorney. You shouldn't count on them on emotionally supporting you. That's what divorce coaches and therapists can do, support groups. And they also don't usually know the financial piece of it because most of them are not financial experts. Some of them
Mhm.
are. I've met a few that are, but most attorneys are not. And so you're asking them about, what to do about your financial situation, and
Like,
they're going to tell you because they know the law and they know
yeah,
certain things, but it's not going to be
not the same
the
as strategy or support. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
That's such a good point. There's a lot of pieces to it. It just makes a lot of sense to come in and at least meet or speak with a divorce coach as early as possible.
Yes.
Because I mean, we all know prevention is the best medicine. So we should, I just really encourage all of my friends, or so you like your attorney, but you have a divorce coach and it's a new thing. Do you know about divorce coaches? Because if you don't have one, you got to get one.
Yeah, they didn't really
Yeah,
have them when I was going through this.
yeah, it's a newer thing.
The industry is changing because
Yeah,
they're realizing how bad it is for families
it's
when they get caught
terrible.
up in this high conflict situation,
Yeah,
spending tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars
yeah,
on fighting each other for and getting nowhere.
getting
It's
nowhere.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. We should all have coaches. I'm a big fan. Yeah. Great. This was so great, Jill. Thank you so much for sharing your story and how you help people. And I would encourage everybody who is in this type of transition to reach out and even just get on a call and just see if you're in the right place, if it's the right time, and get your head around some of the things that are really unavoidable in this type of transition. So thank you so much for sharing. And I look forward to being in touch.
Thank you so much for having me, Christina.
Thanks, Joe.